Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going right into a really critical issue affecting so many people: affordability in America. Our focus today comes from a recent Dr. Phil primetime episode that, well, it really shone a light on the financial pressures folks are facing. Individuals, families, you name it.
Yeah, we've been looking closely at the YouTube transcript from that show, and it's just packed with personal stories, different viewpoints on what's happening with money right now.
Exactly. And our goal isn't just to, recap the TV show. We want to really dig into what this idea of affordability actually means today. It feels like it goes beyond just the headlines about inflation. We want to understand the real struggles people are going through and maybe explore some ways forward that came up.
The scale of it is, well, it's quite striking, isn't it? The financial strain.
Yeah.
That Dr. Phil episode mentioned, I think it was 85% of Americans see inflation as critical, which is huge.
85%.
But maybe even more telling, 62% of people earning over $100,000 say they're living paycheck to paycheck.
Over 100 grand. Yeah, that number really jumped out at me too.
Right. It suggests something deeper is going on than just, rising prices hitting lower income folks. It hints at maybe a shift in what it costs just to maintain a sort of middle-class life.
It really does. And I thought focusing on affordability specifically was smart, because inflation can feel a bit abstract, like an economic term. But when you talk about whether people can actually afford the basics, rent, food, childcare, it just becomes so much more real, tangible.
Yeah, and emotional too.
Totally. And those visuals they had, the audience members holding signs, showing the specific pressures: childcare, rent, groceries, gas, savings, just disappearing. That really hit home.
Absolutely. And, well, Jade's story really brought that lack of affordability into sharp focus, didn't it? Her rent just skyrocketed from $630 to almost $1,400.
Unbelievable.
And that forced her into something nobody expects, right? Living in her car, a 20-year-old Honda Element.
Living in her car. It wasn't like a lifestyle choice. It was necessity.
It's your survival.
It's genuinely hard to wrap your head around that. Your home becoming this aging car with, what, over 250,000 miles?
Yeah.
And her grocery budget, she described it as $20 a week for basics like rice, beans, eggs, oatmeal.
$20.
It gives you this visceral sense of the extreme sacrifices people are making. You have to wonder about the long-term health impact of that kind of diet too.
Oh, definitely. And beyond just the money, her story highlights all these hidden costs and, frankly, dangers of being unhoused, even if you're working. Just think about the practical stuff like showering, relying on public bathrooms, gas stations, and the fear. That 3 a.m. encounter she mentioned with someone yelling at her. That's real fear.
And she's been living like this for months, part-time since March, full-time since July, I think she said.
And what stands out is her resilience, her resourcefulness, finding ways to cope, using camping skills for safety. But it also speaks to this deep isolation, feeling like you can't even ask friends or family for help because they're struggling too.
That moment she described, realizing that $700 rent increase was just impossible. That's where everything changes, right? Your sense of security just shatters. It's such a stark reminder of how fast things can change, push someone into a situation they never, ever imagined.
And it really underscores how fragile financial stability is for so many people, even people working incredibly hard.
Right. She was working 2 full-time jobs before, 80 hours a week.
80 hours.
Yeah.
Until burnout forced her to cut back.
Yeah, so her financial trouble wasn't from lack of effort. It was medical issues, car trouble, the kind of unexpected things that can just derail anyone.
Yeah, life happens.
Life happens.
It's interesting, too, that during her segment on the show, there's this ad for an Echo Flask, promising better focus and energy.
Oh, yeah. I didn't catch that.
It just highlights a sort of disconnect, doesn't it? A product for optimizing wellness versus someone like Jade just struggling for basic survival.
Wow. Yeah. That contrast is stark. And Jade's story, it's not like a one-off thing. Morgan and Justin's situation showed how these pressures hit families across the income scale. They make almost $100,000 a year.
Almost 6 figures.
And they still have nothing left over. It really challenges that old idea that a 6-figure income means you're financially secure.
Absolutely. And their decision, draining their 401k.
Yeah.
Just to pay for necessities like heating fuel. That's a really worrying sign.
It screams desperation, doesn't it? Sacrificing long-term security just for today's needs.
It does. And the costs of raising kids right now. Their struggles with daycare, those crazy grocery bills, $200 or $300 for just a few meals.
Yeah.
And then not being able to afford basic medical care, like the dentist When
Yeah.
you earn that much, it
Uh-huh.
really makes you question the affordability of a, quote, middle-class life today.
What does that mean for people earning less?
On that.
Yeah, the sheer exhaustion they talked about too, looking forward to sleep just to escape the stress, that really hit me. It shows the emotional toll.
Mm-hmm. Constant financial stress.
And their goals are so fundamental. Just having some savings, a safety net, the things that give you peace of mind.
And the fear, right?
Yeah.
That getting sick could just tip them over the edge financially.
Yeah, that precariousness. And worrying about their kids' future, not being able to afford activities or specialists, that feeling like they're failing as parents because of money.
It's heavy stuff.
Hmm.
Their debt, $300,000. Okay, it includes a mortgage, student loans, a car. Pretty standard stuff for
It
many.
still feels overwhelming when everything else costs so much more.
Right. They stress that their spending habits haven't changed, but groceries, gas, everything's just significantly more expensive.
And that lived experience, it just flies in the face of statistics saying inflation has flattened out. They feel the higher costs every single day.
Yeah, it raises a good question about how well those big aggregate numbers actually reflect what individual families are going through.
And this isn't just about individuals and families, right? It hits small businesses too, like Isaac, the gelato shop owner.
Yeah, Isaac's story, he put his life savings, his retirement, everything into that dream.
Sounds like he had some good times early on, fantastic times, he called them.
He did. But then the cost of goods just shot up. He mentioned a freezer compressor going from $500 to $1,500.
Wow, tripled.
Exactly. And major equipment failures on top of that. For a small business operating on thin margins, those kinds of hits are devastating.
So he had to make those awful choices. Raise prices, maybe lose customers.
Pay employees late.
Oh, that must have been incredibly hard. The emotional toll of telling your staff you can't pay them on time.
Yeah. And eventually, laying people off.
And then closing the shop after 6 years, ending up in debt. You can just feel his sense of failure.
Especially for someone who clearly took pride in being an employer,
Yeah.
helping others, contributing.
And he built the place himself,
Yeah.
hammering, electrical, plumbing. It was a real family effort. Makes the loss even tougher.
It really does. And again, that juxtaposition with the advertising. During his segment, an ad for Preserve Gold, suggesting gold is the answer to inflation.
Right. Which might be a strategy if you have capital to preserve, but it feels worlds away from Isaac's immediate crisis of just trying to keep his business afloat against rising costs.
Totally different realities.
So then the episode brings in a very different take. Anton Daniels, entrepreneur, real estate investor.
Yeah, his perspective was quite direct.
You could say that. He basically argued most financial trouble is self-inflicted, that inflation is just an easy excuse.
He gave examples like choosing low-paying fields of study, then complaining about student loans, or expecting to own a car without budgeting for it.
Right, a real focus on individual responsibility, almost to the exclusion of any bigger economic factors.
Yeah, and he even mentioned, quite openly, that he benefits from other struggles by buying foreclosed homes.
Okay.
And he pointed to, 1,700 new millionaires created daily as proof that inflation isn't causing widespread suffering. It's a very specific interpretation of the situation.
He definitely didn't hold back. And it was interesting how he seemed to dismiss the emotional accounts, the detailed budgets people shared, even while admitting some areas have a high cost of living.
Yeah, there was a disconnect there. His pride in his own business success, planning to rebuild after a setback, really contrasted with Isaac's story. It was all about individual drive for him.
But it raises that big question, doesn't it? How much can individual action overcome really challenging systemic economic headwinds?
Exactly. And it's worth noting, someone else on the show apparently called him out for being self-righteous. So his view wasn't just accepted unchallenged right there on the stage.
Ah, okay.
And, for someone claiming not to be emotional, the host pointed out he seemed pretty emotional, especially when dismissing other people's pain. It just shows how complex this all is, how differently people react.
And then another ad, balance of nature supplements focusing on health.
Yeah. Again, well-being is crucial, obviously, but the timing felt a bit off,
Yeah.
given the intense financial anxiety being discussed.
It does sort of underline how tied together our financial health is with our mental and physical health, though.
That's true. Fortunately, the episode did shift towards, a bit more hope. They revisited a couple who'd been on before.
Oh, right. The ones who were working extra jobs but still struggling lost their childcare help?
That's them. Their story really showed how one problem can cascade into others.
So what was the update?
Well, they got help through the show, connected with a financial counselor,
Oh, okay, that's good.
and they made specific changes. downsize their car expenses, insurance, started budgeting together as a couple, actually increased their grocery money, but were more mindful.
So practical steps guided by advice.
Exactly. And the result? They now have a savings account. They're actually on the path towards maybe owning a home.
Wow, that's fantastic. A real turnaround.
It really is a testament to getting that support and being willing to make changes. Their gratitude was palpable.
And that comment the host made really stuck with me. You don't solve money problems with money, you solve money problems with making changes and sacrifices, prioritizing others.
Yeah, that resonated. It hits on the behavioral side, the relationship side of finances. It's not just numbers.
That focus on learning, adapting, finding a better way, it's crucial.
And it's a good counterpoint to Anton Daniels' generalizations, right? It acknowledges that people's situations are different, that unexpected things, medical emergencies, job losses happen.
Definitely. I liked when the host shared his own past struggles, the 2-for-1 burger bucks, the $315 car.
Yeah, makes it relatable. Shows that tough times can be overcome with planning and hard work.
And that analogy he used, not freeze framing the movie of someone's life when they're struggling, but seeing the whole picture, their potential.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And his encouragement for Jade specifically was really thoughtful, reframing her current survival mode as temporary, highlighting her strengths. She's young, smart, articulate.
Saying carpe diem, seize the day, the opportunity will come.
Right. And cautioning against letting those feelings of hopelessness or being a burden take over. That's so important for mental health.
Absolutely. And offering to connect her with the same financial advisor who helped the other couple. That's concrete help, a potential pathway.
Or a real lifeline.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, looking at affordability through that Dr. Phil lens, it's clear this is really complex, no easy answers.
No, definitely not. It goes way beyond just inflation statistics. It's hitting people's lives in really profound, personal ways.
And that tension is always there, isn't it, between individual responsibility and the bigger economic picture.
Undeniably. Personal choices matter, of course they do. But these stories really highlight how rising costs for essentials, housing, food, energy, are outpacing wages for so many. It leaves even really hardworking people struggling just to keep their heads above water.
So for you, the learner listening in, we hope this has maybe offered a deeper look at these realities. It's a reminder to look past the easy explanations, maybe appreciate the different experiences and the real hardship folks are facing.
Yeah. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Reflecting on all these stories, Jade's, Morgan and Justin's, Isaac's, even Anton's perspective. What does it actually mean to succeed in today's economy? And what are those factors, maybe the ones we don't always see, beyond just individual choices that really shape whether someone finds financial well-being or faces hardship? Something to think about as we all navigate these, well, challenging times.